Hey guys, today we're going to do a vlog. Vlog is covering a question that was asked by a fellow YouTuber by the name of Dread Lunn. I've been watching him here for a while. He's a bit of a builder, terrain, does some painting, got some nice little paint jobs going. I'll put a link down to the little doobly-doo thingy for his channel, so you can go by and check him out. But he asked a question today on one of his vlogs that got me thinking. I thought it was a pretty good question. It's a kind of a broad question in a lot of ways. It pertains to basically why. It's not really for bashing anybody or saying this is better than that or anything like that. It's simply why do we do what we do? What got us to where we're at today in our gaming? Why we chose the games we play, and a little bit of history maybe why we make the decisions we made. And with the situation we have nowadays with some of the businesses and stuff, a lot of us are kind of questioning why. So this is sort of my response to his question, and if it evokes a response from you, drop one in. Like I say, there'll be a link to the video, so drop a video response to Lynn, and or like I say, just leave a comment to me or respond to me, whichever way we want to do it. It's fine. This is a free world system basically, so like I say, it's not really meant to be bashing anything. So this is just sort of, like I say, why. So, a little history on me and why I've made the choices I've made. Actually, it's a choice of a lifestyle for me, because I can't really consider this a game anymore. You think about it, I've been doing this close to 30 years, and all told, we're back in the day when I started to now. There's been a couple of gaps in there, but what got me to start, basically, we're talking early 70s when I first found John Carter of Mars. Forget where I actually picked the book up. Whether I picked it up at my grandmother's, or because she collected stuff that she could yard sale. She loved yard sales, so she'd go and buy stuff and then sell it later. And I might have got it there. That's where I'm thinking I found the first John Carter of Mars series. And we're talking early 70s, probably 72, 73. And I read it and loved it. And I'd read it several more times over the years and really identified with that John Carter, man of going back in time or going forward in time, or however you want to put it, leaving the world, fantasy world, and leaving our world to a fantasy world. And just love that little quirk of things. And then we get up into the later 70s. I find Howard and Conan, and instantly loved this huge barbarian dude running around smashing everything and taking the princess off, and so I like that swashbuckling adventure. And being generally a large individual, I fell into that warrior thing real easy. I love that sort of genre. I didn't really have anything for wizards and stuff. Found Lord of the Rings, and Gandalf never thought I'd ever be a Gandalf, but maybe being a Boromir, I could do that, or maybe be Gimli. Well, I could do that. and reading the Hobbits and stuff, and finding other fantasy books and stuff back then. Watching, like, Dread says, I called them old spaghetti Gladiator movies because it reminded me a lot of the Clint Eastwood spaghetti westerns from back in the early 70s, late 60s, early 70s. They made Gladiator movies with Hercules and stuff like that, and I like watching those movies a lot. I watched them every weekend because we had this channel that broadcast back then, and it would be like 24 hours all weekend, nothing but Gladiator movies on the UHF channel. You guys don't know what UHF is? It's the band other than like 2 through whatever we have nowadays. This was a side band. It was in between like AM radio. So we used to watch UHF, which were like back in the day were like public access, where people would just play whatever they wanted. And there's this one dude out of Ohio who would play like Friday night at midnight. It would start playing Gladiator movies and play them all the way through till Sunday at midnight. And just the Phillies UHF band, I believe. But anyway, those I'd sit there and watch those things all weekend, and over and over again. And so now we're looking into I started, like I say, growing up playing sports, and sort of lost some of my fantasy world. But you always had it in the back of my mind. It's always there. And then comes I'm out of high school, in college, start finding some D&D role playing, which brings back all the old Howard books and Conan's and Lord of the Rings and stuff. And I fell into fantasy kind of heavy there at first, because like I say, reliving my books, and never really got any of the history type things. I was always fantasy based and not real life based. And like I say, growing up here in West Virginia, we were sort of limited to what we could get. Bigger cities, I could have probably expanded into some of the other stuff, but in a population that we have here, you're sort of close knit. There's not a lot of outside influence, so we picked up what we read, and for me, that was fantasy. So getting into the role playing was an easy step for us, me and the guys I knew. I'm a bit older than most of them. I found most of my gaming friends through my little brother. And like I say, I was in college, they were in junior high and high school. And basically, I was babysitting by playing role playing. And I got to where I liked it, and I hung out with them a lot. Which means, like I say, going on 50 years old. So I've been doing this since my high school days. So like I say, roughly 30 years. So now it's, like I say, this is a life choice. This is not a game anymore. So there's been some downtimes in them 30 years where I didn't, I was working for a living instead of like now, but working for a living back then, sweating, swinging hammers. I used to be a carpenter. I built stuff, buildings, stuff like that, swinging hammers. And that's where my nickname came from, by the way. That, and I used to do Highland games. So a lot of Americans might not know what they are, but the Europeans will know what Highland games are. And I got fairly well known for throwing the hammer in Highland games as an amateur. So I did that. And then finally, life slowed down a little bit. I could get back into gaming. And so that's where I'm at today. But why I made the choices is basically because of the fantasy background. Back in the day when we started, we're talking even pre-GW days. This is still Citadel. It's no longer, not even GW yet. It's Citadel Miniatures, which back then were just chunks of lead. Ralph Partha, in my opinion, was a better miniature manufacturer. And that was the miniatures I tended to collect. And for me, having a little bit of an art background, that's what I was going to do, be an art teacher. I liked the sculpts of the Partha miniatures better. And that was where I made my choice. The first choices of what I wanted to do. And like I say, we was role playing, and we knew of like um, Chainmail, which used to be an old armory, which used to be like basically a Games Workshop. Used to be called, or way back in the day in the United States, was the Armory, which sold paints and miniatures and stuff like that. But they were a big conglomeration of different manufacturers. But there's a rule set that they had called Chainmail, which is originally D&D. I believe it's if you follow the fluff back far enough, D&D was derived from Chainmail, and Chainmail was a miniature battles with fantasy miniatures instead of historics, and that's where we got started. But shortly after we found role playing, we found Chainmail. Chainmail got us, buying figures, and then, like I said, I found Ral Partha, which gets me rules according to Ral, which allowed me to take my characters that I was making from the miniatures that I was buying and put them on tabletop. And for me, that was the best. Fantasy role playing, D&D or whatever, fell on the wayside to my miniatures, which became what I wanted to do, and led up into, like Warhammer 40K and stuff. But the main focus always was the miniatures. Why I made the choices on the armies that I made is another kind of falls back to my early days in books. I started out in Chainmail playing barbarians, which falls back to my Conan days in role playing. And then we get into Warhammer, which also back then, the original box of Warhammer, there wasn't like all the army lists. They had humans, elves, dwarves, and orcs, and that was your races. So I could play my barbarians. And then fantasy started saying, well, to be barbarian, you have to be chaos. And I didn't like the aspect of chaos. I was always role playing, played into the neutral good area. So I never really appreciated the evil side of stuff. So I never really got into chaos. So I lost my Norse. So when I lost my barbarians, um, we started looking into other things. Growing up in the times that I did, I was reading my fantasy, but the guys I was gaming with grew up in the Star Trek, Star Wars generation type guys, where they were more into the lasers. 40K shows up, they're set. Now they're wanting to play 40K. So Rogue Trader comes out, and I'm playing Warhammer 40K, and going through the things, something about the name Space Wolf and Rogue Trader rang good to me. I liked it. So I adopted the Space Wolf paint scheme for my Marines. And we played them out of the book. They were standard Marines, just like everybody else. But they were Space Wolves. And then the fluff starts coming out. And it turns out that Space Wolves was the perfect choice for me because I was back to barbarians again. Because the old Space Wolf fluff was they were just these big, basically barbarians in full plate or full power armor swinging huge power weapons and not worried so much about the lasers, which was perfect for me. And I fell into them pretty heavy. And our fantasy things sort of dropped off. I had my miniatures, so I pretty much dropped out of fantasy or role playing and stuck with my plastics and my lead. I prefer the plastics over lead because I like to convert. So I've drifted more in that way. And like I say, for preferences, why I've chose the Space Wolves falls clear back to the beginning with the barbarians. And why did I never really do the historical? Mostly because, like I say, the group I was in, we never played it. We played fantasy. Would I like to? Sure. Um, they're seeing some stuff now that I could easily like to do. A bold action looks to be fairly popular and is interesting, miniature wise. There's Rubbish In and Rubbish Out introduced a game there a while back that was historical based unit battles, which I thought sounded pretty good, where I could take my Vikings or my Scots and throw them out on the table and do raids and stuff like that, and little skirmish battles. That really appeals to me. So getting into those in the future, there's a good possibility. Because, like I say, I'm not really a player anymore. I'm a builder. And for me, as long as there's plastics, I'm a happy camper. I can chop plastics all day and make whatever I want to make. So for me, the things that are happening right now is going to affect me in little ways, but enough to change what I'm doing. No, I will continue to build. Whether I build in Manic stuff or whether I build in GW, there can be an option. But for me, and where I'm at in the game, and stuff like that, there's not a lot going to change me. Because, like I say, I'm a builder first and foremost. That's sort of where the hobby's taken me. Is there games out there I'd try? Yes. There's am I going to be solely 40K? No, I will never be solely a 40K player. Say I got into 40K mainly sort of like peer pressure. That's what they played. That's what I play. So there's stuff that interests me. I will go into that if I can find people to play. And being in West Virginia, we're sort of limited. I'm not, I love living here, but will I move to be able to play? No. I bought my house. I'm happy. I'll be here until they burn me. But for playing games, if I can find people to play them, there's several games I want to play. There's Kickstarters out now for Warzone, Mutant Chronicles, Dark Potential, Malifaux, Bold Action. There's several games that I would like to try. Finding people to play them is going to be the harder choice. So, to sort of sum it up, my history was, like I say, fantasy books. Got me my interest. Got me into D&D, which got me into miniatures, which got me to where I am today. Like I say, as long as there's plastic, you got a happy Van Hammer. So that sort of sums up my answer, and the reasons why. So if you got a response you would like to leave, leave it in comments, make a video response. You can make a video response to me or to Dread. I'm sure he'd like to have one. I would link it to mine if you want to link it to mine. So whichever way you guys want to do it, leave a comment, make a video response. Let us know where you feel or what you think. And thanks for watching. If you stuck around this long, we appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next time. Y'all have a good one.